time of year where you might like to be out rather than here learning about the Farm Bill. So we're really glad you're here. We're really glad you're ready to get this kind of information. Of course, we're getting a lot of rollout on these programs right now, and so we're really pleased at OSU to be joining up with USDA on this meeting, really be able to provide you some of the information straight from USDA and combine that with some of the market outlook kind of information that might inform your Farm Bill decisions from OSU. So we'll go ahead and kick it off, and we're going to start off with Scott Biggs to provide an overview of the programs from the FSA perspective. Then we'll have some market analysis from area economists, and then we're going to switch over and do some NRCS programs and some overview of what the kinds of programs they have going on this fall from Farm Bill. And then we'll just kind of wrap it up with a little bit about additional information for your decisions. So with that, Scott?
Thank you.
There you go.
Well, good morning, everybody. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. Before I start, you got Mr. Mark Jackson, he is your local CD. I'm sure everybody here knows him, and Mr. Joe Gellner helps everybody all the time. I was fortunate enough, JD, who's my program chief for this, called me on Friday and said, stay in Chickasha, do this, I can't make it. So they're really stressing that I follow the PowerPoint. Evidently, they know I don't. So I'm not going to do that. I'm here to talk to you about the programs. I'm here to answer your questions. That's all we're going to do this morning. We can do that. Kick off. Everybody knows we got a new Farm Bill rolling out. It's been sign-ups started September 3rd officially is when sign-ups started. I can tell you right now there's not a lot of activity in that program. The simple fact that we're still in the middle of some of the others. Market Facilitation Program, MFP, right now is still front and center for all of our county offices. I don't know, you've had quite a bit of sign up here. I don't know how close started being done, but a lot of activity.
It's hard to tell with this one.
Especially since they added alfalfa in MFP this time around. I knew that was going to help out a lot of counties. Yeah. So MFP sign up for that is ending on December 4th. So that's why it's key, and that's why everybody's still focused on it right now. ARP, the sign up goes through next spring. But MFP right now is front and center. If you have any questions, still haven't asked about that or made an application about the market facilitation program. Your time's running out pretty quick on that. But I'm going to do my best to follow the PowerPoint so JD can say I touched on the topics, and we'll move from there. So the overview, you guys, new election options, that's the biggest change that I've seen. When you come in this year to sign up for our PLC, you're going to elect for 19 and 20. And then if you want to change, you're going to have the option to change it for the 21 forward. That's never been the case. Usually when you come in, you sign up for a program, it's for the life of the Farm Bill. So the sign-up option this year is going to change. You elect from 19 and 20 at the same time, then you're going to have the option to switch programs moving forward. If you're trying to track me with that camera, I'm sorry. Updating yields, that's something that's going to be new too. The grass program, I think some of us got some more letters again. It's a big program. NRCS is going to touch on that. Those went out last week, I saw. So I know people are getting a lot of calls, a lot of questions about that. That's going to be later on. RMA yields, as everybody knows, all of our programs are going meshing together a lot more. RMA, NRCS, and FSA have been joined under the FPAC. It's a new agency. So there's a lot of information sharing going on now that wasn't going on 2 or 3 years ago. So we are starting to rely a lot more on RMA data. Not really applicable here. We don't have a lot of irrigated and non-irrigated, but certain parts of Oklahoma, that's huge. physical location. So that catches a few farmers in this area. If you have farms on the county line, and you could elect whether or not you went to Chickasha or Anadarko, usually your farms are all in one or the other. Now we have to split it off. Your farm's going to be located in the county where the farm's at. So even if you've got farms in two counties, you're going to have two different prices for the program. Now, you can still take care of all your business in one county, but it's not one of those, your headquarters county controls everything. That is a change. It does hit a few people around here. The 10-acre base, that doesn't really apply around here. That's a lot more on the East Coast. If you have less than 10 base acres, you don't qualify. That's never been the case in this area. So, election, I already touched on it. That's the big key. You come in for 19 and 20, you're going to do both at the same time. I know they're going to cover some of the selection tools a little bit later, the new spreadsheet that OSU, Kansas State went together on. Because as you know, Mark, or anybody in the office, we can't advise you on which program. You guys got to make that decision on your own. We can give you all the information you need, and give you all the technical assistance we need, but at the end of the day, it's up to you to decide which is best for you and your situation, which is where our partner with OSU comes in. We've relied on them heavily in the past and going to continue to do so moving forward. So their new tool they're going to touch about is going to help us make the decision a lot easier. You can change. That's going to be key. I mean, if you look at last year's or last Farm Bill, and everything equaled out, ARC and PLC on a 4-year average paid almost identical to the same. There wasn't much difference. That probably won't be the case this time around. Prices going down, all the volatility, there's other things in play. So there is going to be the option to change for 21 moving forward, which is why that selection tool is going to be key. Failure to elect. Hopefully that won't be the case. I know Mark and Lynette will get everybody in here. However, if nothing happens, you'll fall back to your other program that you were in to begin with, and then you won't receive a 2019 payment. But failure to elect won't be an issue. We all know what's going to take place. ELC yield update. So last was updated in 2013 through 2017. 90% adjustment factor. This is the physical location part. So, as I mentioned earlier, it used to be if you have farms in 2 counties, you could elect and move forward with one of those. Now it's strictly by physical location. They're going back in and making us change the maps, even moving it a couple, 2 or 3 feet. To make sure we get everything right where it needs to be. Be fortunate your farms aren't on the Red River. We've had to call some Texans and say, congratulations, your farm's in Oklahoma, because what they use for the river is not where the river's at right now. So it's they're getting pretty serious about making sure our maps are 100% accurate. Physical location is where your program benefits will be. However, you can still use the same office for both. Don't worry about that. Goes back to, are you eligible to participate? If you've got base acres, you're going to be eligible. If you had some CRP land, which isn't really big in this area, comes out, you had base acres coming in, you're going to have base acres coming out, but we don't have a lot of CRP here. It's not going to be an issue. Basically, most farms in Grady County or Caddo, wherever you're from in this part of the area has base acres. You're going to be eligible to participate if you want. If you might have any questions, I feel like I'm talking, and this isn't the way I usually do things. So, no question? No? 10 or less, okay, this is truly doesn't apply. I had asked the question, why was this even in here? And there's a lot of farms on the East Coast that seem to have less than 10 acres, so that's not going to apply in this area. here's the, where we partner with NRCS. As you know, when it comes to our programs, we do require you to participate, especially on highly erodible land. We've actually seen several cases of benefits, not in this area, but benefits removed for failure to participate in some of this highly erodible land. So that's just a disclaimer. Anytime you participate with any of our programs, you do have to follow those rules. Any crop, same thing. Nothing changes. So if your base acres are wheat or seed cotton, because we just did some of that, you still get paid on your base acres. You can plant whatever you want. It used to be the case years ago, but now, just because you have wheat acres, base acres, doesn't mean you have to plant wheat. You can try canola, alfalfa, whatever. Any crop can be planted as long as you plant some type of crop. Eligible producers. So this has changed just a touch. Mark, how are you handling the no signatures in this county?
We do still sign up, in the zero share signatures.
Yes.
At this point, I think we're going to require them.
Okay. So Grady County is still going to require signatures from all landowners. There was a provision in there if there was a zero share, like it was a true, the owner just leased you the land and had zero risk, and we could do a program with zero signatures. Grady County's following suit like I'd say 90% of our counties are.
We'd like to at least start out, we're not going to necessarily do that every year. It's a small quantity.
That's not a change from anything you guys have been doing in the past year. So the zero shares, don't worry about that. We're moving forward. Maybe able some of your leased land to get away with some of that. But as of right now, so here in Grady County, you still need to have zero share signatures. That's it. That was my PowerPoint. I did not do what? More? See, this is what I get for JD. Oh, you want me to get into specifics. So, what questions you guys have? So, main thing on the overviews, we went for 19 and 20. That's going to be key. Physical locations, you still use the one office, but your payments are going to be based on exactly where the farms are located. And here in Grady County, they're going to need all signatures on the forms from the landowners. So. Reference prices. Now, this is probably what everybody's wanting to and going to need for the spreadsheet.
They'll already be in there.
You already got them in there? Okay. So, no need to write this down. It's already in the OSU spreadsheet. But these are going to be the prices moving forward. So your PLC payments, this isn't a change. But this is how everything's calculated. I think as we were visiting this morning, that's one thing that's going to be nice about the OSU spreadsheet. We have another university that has everything online, and you enter the numbers, and it gives you two different answers, two different times. OSU's is pretty straightforward. They're going to be able to tell you, and you can actually back in to see why exactly that is. But reference price, effective price, gives you your PLC payment. The only thing, and I'm going to stress, if you've got farms in two counties, you could see two different payments, which is going to be different from before. I stress that because we've gotten a few complaints about when we're redoing the farms. That's nothing we have control over. That's a national agenda to make sure our farms are 100% accurate down to a couple feet. So. Those are the prices that are set through 2023. And nothing, the reference prices have not changed from the 2014 Farm Bill. Seed cotton is the only exception. We went through, Grady County had quite a few seed cotton. We did all that last fall or in the spring. Went through that process. You had seed cotton. That's you came in and took care of that. This is a change for the new Farm Bill. So lesser 150% of the reference price, or the greater of the reference price, 85% of the 5-year Olympic average. And that's probably using RMA data. That's one of the things we're focusing more on. Used to be your county committees set some yield, set some data. I can tell you right now, moving forward, it's county committees have a little bit of discretion, but they have to base their decisions on the RMA data. So that's going to be a little bit of a change, but it kind of makes everybody more uniform. What questions? No questions yet? PLC, nothing has changed from the 2014 Farm Bill on that. Reference price, effective price gives you your PLC payment. Farm level payment amount, payment rate, PLC yield, payment acres, your PLC payment. None of this has really changed. Moving forward, this is probably going to how this program is going to work for quite a while. So. Let's take that back. Seed cotton. Everything, especially around here, seed cotton was added, was updated. So if you have, we've got quite a few farms around here that have some seed cotton base. That's going to be the only change from the previous farm. PLC payment acres is going to be 85% of your base acres. Your non-payment acres, your 3 acres, 15% of base acres on the farm, 100% of unassigned generic base, 100% of all base acres of the grass out of 5. No change there. Any questions? Here's an example. I know you guys are going to do some more hands-on examples with the spreadsheet coming up here. This is how it's going to work. You got your reference price, corn, it's $3.70. 115% of that's $4.26. Get your other options in there. Right. So under this one, you get a 40 cents payment. How that was going to come out. I'm sorry, this is the first time I've seen this. This is exactly what the OSHA spreadsheet is going to cover.
Yeah, so the decision tool will do this effective reference price calculation for you. It'll have all the market year average data in it. It'll do that comparison to the effective reference price. And if we get some prices that start going up and that effective reference price kicks in for those higher marketing year average dates, then the tool will take that into account. Just kind of what we've seen in prices in recent years. I don't really expect to see much other than reference prices be used there in that payment calculation. So it would be like the 370 and then as compared to whatever the current marketing year average. It also includes And this was kind of a change in this farm bill too, was this lag, what they call a new cascade in the prices. So it wouldn't include the 2018 marketing year average price in that calculation, and the tool will already include that as well.
So, I guess you got another exercise here. Same one. So 100 acres, that would get you $6,800 payment on that previous example. But like I said, you guys are very fortunate. The new OSU, KSU spreadsheet, compared to some of the other options available to you, they're going to take care of this for you. So, yield update. This is a change. You're going to be able to come in and update the yields or keep what you have. There's a lot of fluctuation. Some of our rain disasters and everything has dramatically impacted people's yields. So you do have the ability to come in and update if you choose. These are your covered commodities. The only thing change on that is the addition of seed cotton. So everything else remains in there. Coming in, update your yields. Like I said, that's a decision you got to make on your own. You have that option, but you got to take other things into play. This option, okay, yeah, and this is updating yields available no matter what program you choose. So if you want ARC, you want PLC, ARC, IC, whatever you choose, you can come in and update your yields. If you want to retain your current yields, you don't do anything. Bring in your stuff. They can update your yield when you come in. Seed cotton. Another example of the ratio. National office is taking over some of this, so they're the ones determining covered commodities when you come in and update your yield. But like I said, stress to you do not have to. If something's happened, droughts, I know there's several yields have been affected over the past 5 years. If you want to maintain your current yield you have on file, you can definitely do that. Option is 100% yours.
Scott, will they need to bring any paperwork in to do that yield update, or is that something that you guys will already have based on the records that you have on file?
They would need to bring in their records. That's something we don't normally have. Now, if you participate in some of the other programs, it's probably the same records you brought in for MFP or something else. But that's not something we generally get. You got the spreadsheet doesn't cover any of this, does it?
Yeah, it includes the yield update. Well, the part of the reason I asked that question is we need to know what information they're going to need to enter their own records to do the yield update comparison.
Okay, so you are fortunate. So you're going to have that option. What questions do we ask? I'm sorry, this is not the way I usually do a presentation, so I need some questions. None from Joe, or Becky who snuck in here. How are you, Becky?
I make a comment on yields.
Okay.
I looked today, we went out, everybody put up paper yield 1985, 2002, 2014. We don't get that opportunity very often.
come in and update your yields. You don't have to. Office will work with you, get your records that we need. We can take care of that.
It's the only year that you're allowed to do the update
Yes.
on your yields.
What's the deadline?
The sign up actually is underway right now. There'll be some registers and everything, so I mean, we're gonna be signing up into the spring.
Oh, so the springs before you have to make a decision.
Yes.
Okay.
That's one of those, we got the MFP program I mentioned is in full swing. You also have, Grady County's gonna be eligible for the WIP Plus, which are the wildfire, hurricane, and indemnity program, which will be number 2 up, as soon as MFP's done here.
And what is that about?
That's due to some of the flooding that took place this spring, flooding, tornadoes. Grady County's gonna qualify for that. That'll be another quick program. And then the focus will be on our PLC.
What other counties in the area? Because we're from Canadian, so.
Okay. Canadian had a tornado, so they're gonna qualify for that. I don't know if you did you have much flooding up there?
Not where we were, but yeah, just a
Okay.
little.
Okay, so I know we'll cover some of the tornadoes, some of the other storm damage. As far as the flooding, I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with that. With that program, it's underway right now, but it like literally changed Friday afternoon, and they did another 180 and changed it. So at some point, they're going to have the final version of what that program will be. You guys will be moving forward. So MFP, WIP Plus, and then priority will switch to
What's
RPLC.
the MFP stand
Market
for?
facilitation program, that's the,
Market facility.
for your commodities impacted from the trade offset.
Yeah, I think they signed us up for that one, but.
Okay.
So here, sign this.
That's the way most things happen. So,
Explanation.
okay, so yield updates, if you want to update it, just remember it's only for the PLC program. It's not used for the Hart County. But as Mark pointed out, you don't get the opportunity to update yields very often. So this is something that's really a decision up to you, whether or not this is something you want to do. You don't have to, but the option is available to you.
So if you were thinking about going with the art now, but maybe would switch later to the PLC, you would still want to look at your yield and see if you want to still update.
Yes, ma'am. And I know that's what they're going to cover here as soon as I get done talking, so.
I just wanted to put it in English.
Well, I can't stress to you how lucky you guys are to have this new spreadsheet. You probably should have started with that, to be honest with you, but, yeah.
It tells you what's in it. You're covering the important stuff that's in
So,
it.
compared to what's been available to you in the past and in making these decisions, it's kind of been a shot in the dark. Get a lot of coffee shop talk, a lot of co-op talk. At the end of the day, there wasn't anything you could really put your hands on to look at. That has completely changed now with this OSU, KSU update. So you're going to be able to write it out, have it on paper, have it in front of you, and make the best decision. So if you want PLC, or you can opt into the Ark County. Or there's RKIC. I know, can't tell, we had very little to hardly any participation in RKIC. It is an option that is still available to you. It's included in the spreadsheet. But it's one of those programs, it's listed, it's touched, but Mark, I don't know if you had any even here in Grady County, did you?
Our individual?
Yeah, you had 4. Okay, so it's still an option, it's still
It's
available.
not popular.
Do what?
It's not popular.
No. Hart County is based on your county County average, county level. I'll stress to you, this is one of those things, county committees would set this yield. This is one of those that they're moving more to RMA based, based off your RMA reporting. So the county committees still have a little flexibility, but it's going to be based off RMA to make sure there's not a big swing or deviation from that. You don't have to report anything on your yields or anything. It's set by county level. Park individual, if you're one of the four here that, or if you want to look at participating in that, this is kind of what it covers. Do you have any of the preventive planning? I didn't think there was much out here.
Yes,
Okay.
but I think for this applicability, it's a lot about all preventive planning. It's a lot, we have preventive planning, but not whole farm
Gotcha.
necessarily preventive planning. So it's still not, nobody expected to be much different than it has been, not much.
So I stressed this early on because this has been one change that we've got a lot of questions about. I'm glad to see JD put big red, this is new. Physical locations. We have to go by where the farm is located. So if you use in our county, Grady County, Caddo County, you're gonna have two different county averages, two different county payments. Even though all your business can still be taking place in one county, you designate a headquarter county. Everything now goes off the physical location of the farm. That is a change from previous farm bills. So that's the direction we're all going. Our county, so these are the steps that we're going to go over on the spreadsheet with you. Have your benchmark revenue, county guarantee, county crop revenue. You got to determine if a loss occurred. If the loss is more than greater than 10%, and then you get your payment. So this is one of those that's going to be in the spreadsheet. Punch everything in and see how you get there. Here's our examples that they're giving us. So you have your yields, you have your market year price, and then you have what the county has set as their average. So in this case, your county average will get you a small payment. So but this is the example we're going to go through on the spreadsheet with you. So 10% benchmark revenue, and that's going to be something that's pay attention to. Can't exceed 10% of the benchmark revenue. What questions do you guys have? So, 2913, this is where it comes in. You're allowed to elect for 19 and 20. You can elect if you want to change. You have the opportunity to change. However, you're set for the 19 and 20 years. Sign up September 3rd through March 15th. That's when I say that's why we're not really focused on this right now. Some of the other programs is because you still have it until next spring. Got to enroll. The election will be automatic. I think the election, everything's on the same form this time around. So trying to make it easier. questions? So, just to recap up to this point, you have till the spring. For our programs right now, focus should be on MFP, making sure you're in, because that one ends December 4th. WIP is next, they haven't told us the date, and then everybody should be focused on RPLC after that. So. All producers on the farm, nothing's gonna change. Grady County's gonna be the same as it has been in the past. If you lease some land, you still gotta go get those signatures. Only thing is, it's a 19 and 20, you can change after that if you want. Everybody's gotta agree, producers gotta agree on the change. There's been no change on this from the previous Farm Bill. The only thing is, if you want to change programs, you have that option. If you don't make an election, you'll default to what it was the previous year. However, you will not be eligible for the 19 payments. So that's one thing. It's not going to be an issue here. We're going to get everybody in and get the decisions made. Across all the counties are going to do that. So after you make your election 1920, you sign up. If you don't want to change, you don't actually have to do anything. The elections remain in place for the length of the Farm Bill. You're going to have to come in and make a new election. As you're coming in and doing your annual acres recording and all that, I'm sure this is something that'll be touched on with you. But once you sign up, you don't have to do anything else. General information. So these are the enrollment dates. March 15th is going to be key. You're going to be seeing a big push from us here, probably into December, January, February. Doing a lot more push to make sure people get in and get signed up. But as it stands right now, MFP, WIP Plus should be our focus. So if you have any questions about those right now, please come see us. That's it, I guess. That's it. Please ask questions. I mean, this is, Becky, you can't, because I ask a lot of questions already. So, any of our programs, anything.
So is WIP taking place in your ECP?
No, ECP is still in place. It actually qualifies for both. So, it's just an additional ad hoc program. Jay, what questions you have? Well, I apologize. I don't like PowerPoints and definitely don't like reading them.
You said it based on farm location. Is everything going to be consistent across the county? Based on, your farm is, say your farm is in Grady County, is everything and all the payments will be consistent across that county, or there's not zones or anything within those?
Everything's set on a county level.
Okay.
But the difference, the main change is if multiple county producers, multiple counties, it used to be everything, they could choose their headquarters,
Right.
have everything set on the same one. That's the big change right there. I know it didn't take an hour, so I'll give you more time to look at that spreadsheet.
Well, man, you've really set it up for me to spike it, and I wish I really had more examples of the spreadsheet. But I think one of the clear things that comes out of this is those market prices are going to be really important for this next year and for the decisions in 19 and 20. And certainly we are not in a cheery situation as far as markets go for a lot of our commodities. And so that's why we're going to have Trent here talk a little bit about what's going on in some of our markets, particularly what are we expecting in 19 and 20 when these decisions are going to be made but then I think particularly that flexibility that's going to be in this one, I think is a really huge thing. Not just for being able to take advantage of what's happening in the market or what's happening in growing conditions for ARC versus PLC. But then I also think, some of the flexibility that gives you, we have so many people who are managing ground, and some of those changes that might be happening across this period of time, being able to make the election that makes the most sense for them. I think that's going to be really good. So if there's no other questions for Scott, then we'll turn it over to Trent to talk a little bit about what's happening in the markets. And Trent's a producer himself, so I'm sure he thinks about this stuff. These are the things that keep him up at night.
Well, thanks for coming out, guys. How many of you were a part of the last Farm Bill sign-up? How many of you came to our meetings last time? I don't have PowerPoints. You guys are we're really gonna get intimate here. All right, so when it comes to these decisions, we got ARC, PLC. Who remembers what ARC was basically designed as? Shallow revenue protection, 10% of the benchmark revenue. Remember what those payment rates were? $15, $20. They're so insignificant you forgot, right? What was the main program we signed up in this county?
PLC.
Yeah, PLC. Was anybody in ARC? Some people were in ARC. Why did we sign up in ARC as opposed to PLC? There was an expected payment the first year of the Farm Bill, and we pretty much knew we were going to get a payment the second year of the Farm Bill too. So it was, bird in the hand's worth two in the bush type of thing. What was the commodity price outlook like then? Were wheat prices higher than they are today? How much higher? There's a number up there that you can remember that was up there for the reference price. Reference price $5.50, right? So whenever we were making those elections, wheat price had been consistently above $5.50 going all the way back, I want to say prior to 2010. It had not been below $5.50. So we threw up a forecast on there and had $5.50, and you had wheat prices way above it. We thought, how many of you think wheat price is going to go below $5.50 in the next 5 years or next 4 years? And everybody said, no, I don't think it'll happen. So with the guaranteed payment the first year of the Farm Bill, the expected payment the second year through ARC, not expecting wheat price to come below $5.50, a lot of people signed up in ARC. And we've got exactly the opposite situation this time around. Wheat prices consistently below $5.50. If you look at USDA's 10-year projections, maybe one time they expect to get close to $5.50. Now, what does that mean? Absolutely nothing, right? They're projections. Whenever prices were above $5.50, we thought there's no chance they're going to go below. Now we've been below $5.50 for several years. We don't think there's much chance they're going to go above. So what does this really come down to? It's a risk management decision on your farm. Where do you get the most risk management protection on your farm when it comes to grains? You guys know this answer. Crop insurance. Crop insurance. Because what does crop insurance do? What's a typical wheat crop insurance level in this county? 70%? 60%, somewhere in there. So you're going to purchase crop insurance. It's covering 60-70% of your APH. That's a lot bigger number than anything ARC can provide you in terms of revenue. Now, when it comes to PLC, it's like the cheapest $5.50 put option you could ever purchase, right? Because you sign up for it, and your wheat price will always be $5.50 locked in. You can go higher. You can take advantage of prices higher than $5.50, but you'll be locked in at $5.50 on the downside. So I ran some numbers, and I was up in Woods County for a Farm Bill meeting lately. And I ran the numbers, and I used an FSA program yield of 35, I believe. How many of you have an FSA program yield above 35? Probably a lot of you. The other thing we're going to do is pay more attention to what's on those forms this time around too, because it makes a big difference. Because PLC makes payments based on your FSA program yield times the difference between the reference price and the marketing year average price. So if you have a really big program yield, say if you're 40, 45, 50 bushel program yield, you get paid at a higher rate than someone with a 35, 30, or 25 bushel program yield. So kind of your individual farms makes a big difference on what program you're going to be interested in. Say if the marketing year average price comes at $5, so we take $5.50 of the reference price minus $5 gives you 50 cents, times 50 cents by whatever your program yield is, and that's your payment. So for producers this time around, we're stuck.
helping you.
You're gonna help me? There you go. I think we were doing okay. Yeah, so Amy pulled up these numbers, and I didn't figure I was going to get this far into it, but as I was listening to the previous presentation, I figured this would be helpful. You look at the difference between these two programs, and we have a program yield in here of 25, which again, that changes PLC projected payments a bunch whenever you change this number. And I would venture to guess some of you have PLC program yields that are double this. So over the life of the Farm Bill, PLC payments from 2014 to 2018 were $84. Hart County payments from 2014 to 2018 were $67. So not even $20 difference over the life of the Farm Bill between those two programs with a PLC program yield of 25. If you double that PLC program yield, it makes a huge difference. Okay. So again, looking at outlook talks, it's useless to you, right? We're just trying to figure out where prices may go. Again, this comes down to a risk management problem. And since we get to change over the life of the Farm Bill, going back and forth on what we expect we're going to sign up for, this first time going around, we're below $5.50 on our PLC reference price. ARC hasn't paid extremely well because it's a shallow revenue loss product. We didn't expect it to make huge payments. Probably have a lot of people looking at PLC. When I look at projections for wheat price out in the future, we talked about USDA's numbers. Look at the futures market. You can get pretty close to $5 for next year if you're looking at July 2020 futures contracts. So we're kind of there, really close to that number. What do you think will happen in the future to drive wheat prices above $5.50? You want to get real nitty gritty into this outlook thing, looking at the macro economies. Higher oil prices might help grain prices improve. What's going on with the U.S. corn crop right now? It's planted late, risk of freeze, that could help push wheat prices higher. Who's our biggest competitor in wheat export markets? Anybody heard of Russia? Russia is running into a situation right now when you look at their stocks to use ratios and their ending stocks, they have been selling wheat like crazy and they aren't able to keep up with their export rates. So they're drawing down their supplies pretty tight, and it's when you go back several years, we talked about it might take 4 or 5 years to get out of this glut of wheat. We're getting to that end point, and some of this is coming true, where Russia has sold a lot of their wheat, their ending stocks are low, and we're looking at 2020 where if Russia has an average crop, they could run out of exportable wheat, get pretty close to it. We've seen in the past where that country is willing to ban exports if they're concerned about their food supply. So those are kind of ideas that are floating out there that might affect us. We've been playing around with a recession in this country back and forth where we raise interest rates and then, things are slowing down, so we get a little bit nervous and we bring them back. So that's kind of looming out there. The value of the U.S. dollar has been relatively high, making it difficult for us to export. So our being able to stay in a period of growth, an extended period of growth in this country, has really made our dollar very valuable and difficult to export our commodities. So when you think about what is going to drive the wheat price above $5.50, it's going to be a country like Russia having big production problems or just running out of wheat to export, and we could become players in the market again. So big what if there. It's going to happen in the next 2 years, maybe at the end, but it's not something we're looking at right at the very beginning. So that might occur by the end of 2020, 2021. Looking at the U.S., we've already drawn down wheat acres very low to where the acres that are getting planted in wheat have to be. They aren't really suitable for other crops, I would guess, is where we're at right now. And we're grazing off a lot of that wheat and not producing grain, still having trouble exporting our crops. And it's just a quality issue most of the time, not being competitive. So we're not going to get a whole lot of help from domestic wheat production in terms of getting prices higher. We could see corn. I'm looking at this crop that's going to be coming in, looking to harvest. If the corn crop is a little bit negative or if things come true, if they get a frost up there the next couple of weeks, that could really push prices higher. But do minor increases in prices affect the marketing year average price very much? Why not? How's the marketing year average price calculated? It's a weighted by sales. So just because prices jump, if there's no grain to be sold, you can't affect the marketing year average price as much because it's based off of actual sales. So as we think about these things, it has to be year-long events that capture whole crops that can cause the price to go up or down dramatically. So long story short here, I wouldn't expect a whole lot to change in this first 2 years. And that's the outlook thing you have to consider right now because we're looking at the first 2 years of the Farm Bill. So we got consistent wheat prices below $5.50, probably going to stay that way for the next couple of years. PLC probably has a better chance of paying, and we'll see some of that, I guess, as we get closer and run through some of the calculations. Now, in terms of cattle, should I do an outlook on cattle?
Well, it's all interrelated. So.
It's all interrelated. Why would cattle be interrelated? Cattle are important for feed and feed markets. So what is our cattle inventory numbers looking like right now? What part of the expansion or decline phase are we in?
It's kind of messed up because of that fire in Kansas. So
Fire.
it's a little different, and
Yeah.
the price went down a lot for just kind of one factory fire.
It came back, didn't it?
Well, yeah, a little bit.
It's almost like you look at the prices for cattle and it's almost like what fire? Because we've recovered now to right where we were before it.
But that's kind of changed what's available, and then we kind of pulled
Yeah.
back a little just to see what was going to happen.
Yeah, a little bit. So when you take out a big plant like that, 5% of the cattle slaughter occurred there. You're going to decrease your feeder cattle prices because there's nowhere to send them, and you're going to increase box beef prices because there's not product coming out. So it's really a beautiful explanation of how markets should work. A lot of people are upset about it, and they're mad about record packer gains, but go back to 2014 and 15, we were selling cattle for $3. It was record packer losses, and nobody seemed to really care at that point. So, yeah, markets work, markets don't work. I think they're doing fine, and it's just on what side of the coin you are that makes you upset about that. But we're kind of we're right at the top of where we think cattle inventory numbers are going to go in this cattle cycle. It's turning out to be a real pretty cattle cycle, long-term one, and we don't expect to see a huge crash this time and probably ever in the future like we've seen in the past because our inventories are so good at staying current and we're able to flex that carcass size to adjust pounds of beef with fewer numbers of cattle, so we don't have to get our cow herd really huge anymore to provide the amount of beef that the consumer wants. We can flex carcass size. So our cattle inventory number will probably not drop off as much as we expect it could, given past cattle inventory cycles, but we are in that declining stage where we're starting to draw numbers down. We saw the first reduction in cattle on feed inventory numbers in what was it, 30 months or something like that. It's been a long time. And that's going to start decreasing the number of cattle that are eating corn. Could weigh heavily on grain prices in the future, not something we'll see here right in the very beginning again, because we're going to keep these inventories pretty calm in the next couple of years and might start to draw down just a little bit. But it all comes down to risk management. How many of you are grain farmers and cattle farmers? Pretty much everybody, okay? So again, you got your major risk management coming from crop insurance. These programs are just a little bitty part of that. Cattle have been relatively good to us the last several years and have remained strong even in the face of adversity. Prices have been relatively strong. So not a whole lot of concerns from the cattle complex coming out right now. I would expect, slight drawdown in inventories. We're going to start seeing prices reflect that. We've gotten some signals that we need to be getting smaller. but things are just kind of moving along sideways. You looking at wheat pasture for the coming year. I think wheat pasture bids have been relatively constant the last 3 years, and the numbers I've been hearing recently are like 45 cents per gain. We got value of gain sitting around $1 to $1.25, depending on where the price slide you're at. If you are buying those lightweight 400-pound calves, the price slide's a little more severe. You get down into the 5 and 550 weights, you've got that price slide kind of leveling out, and you see those higher values of gain. So things are looking pretty good in the cattle complex and feeder cattle for the coming year. You can buy at the money put options for around $7, and you can lock in a profit at that level. It's costing us about 35 cents to grow wheat for calves right now. So things are looking pretty good, in my opinion, in terms of profitability if we can just get the wheat in the ground and get it up and going. And this warm fall we're having is going to be conducive to grow forage. So positive things in the cattle outlook, I would expect. We're seeing a little bit of a spread between select and choice. We're having cattle grading a little bit worse than typical right now, and I think some of that has to do with all the poor conditions in feedlots. Looking back to the spring, whenever they were all slogged with water, cattle just didn't finish as well, and we're starting to see that show up, and we could have a little bit of a price problem when it comes to select choice spread and a little bit more select meat than we really want out in the market. But just watching that right now, it hasn't really done much in terms of affecting the meat prices as we can go on, and we look at consumer index has been again historically strong for beef, even in these high prices that we continue to remain in. We're not losing market share to other meats. We have big problems with pork and African swine fever, and reductions in the amount of pork in the world is conducive to higher beef prices and keeping consumer demand strong as they look for substitutes for that product. So again, pretty good outlook for cattle. And that's going to help in terms of the overall risk management plan with a strong commodity compared to our grains. We look at corn and soybeans. Again, we got a concern about short corn crop might make prices go higher. Has it been frustrating for any of you how long that's taken to manifest itself? We've got 11 million prevented planted acres, and we're still expecting that we planted somewhere around 89, 90 million acres of corn. It's been a little bit frustrating waiting on the WASDE reports to reflect what's going on out there, right or wrong. A lot of producers have thought some of those numbers are a little off. Saw a little bit of an adjustment to that in the last WASDE report, and we'll have one coming in pretty soon. Again, it's going to affect those prices. Now, if the corn crop comes in short, how much can prices go up? Earlier in the summer, I was thinking you could see wheat jump $1, $1.50, and that's not going to happen anymore. It's taken too long for this to occur. You might see wheat get a 50-cent jump out of something major, but again, we're running out of time for something major to happen. There's not enough variables to change now to the end of the year, and warmer weather is helping that corn crop finish out the way it's supposed to. But, recapping all that I've said, do we think wheat prices are going to be below $5.50 for the next 2 years? Did you think that before I talked to you this morning? Does that make you more interested in PLC? Maybe. Yes? Did I get anywhere with you guys? Remember, PLC protects against prices for wheat going below $5.50. So if you're expecting that the wheat market is going to remain below $5.50 for the next 2 years, I take a close look at PLC. What does ARC do? Remember what ARC does for us. Shallow revenue protection protects 10% of the benchmark revenue on your calculations. So that's a very shallow level coverage, somewhere around, in the past it's been between 1876 and 1684. Has that been a product that you've been happy with over the life of the last Farm Bill? So what can ARC do that PLC can't? It can pay in years when prices aren't below $5.50. So again, remembering back to the decisions we made in the last farm bill, if wheat price is above 550, ARC looked more desirable because it could pay in years whenever the reference price or the price current marketing year average price was above the reference price. Now we've gone through this period of time where wheat's been consistently below 550, and we've kind of forgotten about the advantages ARC can have. So ARC can pay if you have prices as high as $8, but yields below 5. You know, if you have just a horrible producing year, ARC can go ahead and pay. So it's not always black and white in these things. These two products are very different. Where PLC can only pay if prices are low, ARC can pay if yields are low or prices are low, or vice versa, any combination as long as you're below that benchmark revenue threshold.
You have to harvest it to get PLC.
You have to harvest it to get PLC?
Do you?
No. Now, when you lock in these programs, it's tied to your base acres no matter what you do on your own farm. How many of you bought SCO in the last farm bill? So yeah, this supplemental coverage option was a product that we didn't have to spend very much time educating on, but if you look at PLC as your next program, you'll be eligible for SCO coverage, crop insurance coverage, based on county level losses. So that'll be something to consider as well, moving forward. What are some other thoughts on markets that you guys have had? Have you been trading or anything like that? Looking at price protecting the coming crop? Like I said, there's pretty good opportunities in feeder cattle for put options if you're purchasing right now with the recovery in the market that we've seen, and just locking in a relatively decent profit, in my opinion. That's something I would definitely look at. When it comes to wheat, we've just been wallowing. The spread between Chicago and KC wheat has been historically high. It's been as high as 93 cents on the last contracts. When we rolled, we've gotten as high as 84 or 85 cents. And that's very untypical that Chicago would be more expensive than KC wheat. And it's due to, again, protein and an overabundance of high protein hard red winter wheat in the world, and we're having trouble marketing that. So we see Chicago wheat being worth more. That spread is either normally even to KC being a little bit higher than Chicago. So again, you might think artificially, because of some of the supply problems we've been having in wheat, that we see our KC wheat price being either 80 or 90 cents below where it could be if we had a good market for our protein. So wheat on its own can hold its legs. Thinking of Chicago, Chicago wheat is probably where the wheat market should be if we didn't have these protein problems, but KC is just sitting on its feed value. And that's why it just moves perfectly with corn. And because corn is going to cattle feed, hard red winter wheat is a lot going to cattle feed as well. And we've seen that for several months now where they've been blending wheat into the rations. So we got to get out of that funk, and then we could see higher wheat prices. But for the purpose of this farm bill sign up in the first 2 years, probably not a whole lot of threat of wheat prices going above 550. Now what time are we looking at?
We're getting close. Now, the one question I had, we haven't talked about seed cotton yet. Did you say you had some seed cotton base? Ms. Caleb, any of you guys want to hear anything about cotton?
They might want to hear it from somebody intelligent. And that might not happen with me.
I'm not touching that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the struggle that we have, is having good experience with cotton.
You explain
Why we have trouble with cotton? Because I'm from the Northwest. That's why I struggle with it. In terms of prices, the seed cotton price. See, I'm like I said, you might have more information on that than I do. I'd probably be pretty pitiful in trying to explain it.
We all know what links were,
Yeah.
but we don't all know what actual cotton seed is.
Yeah, and that's a tough one to figure out, because cottonseed on its own will be basically its feed value, and we've seen pretty depressed soybean prices, and they kind of dominate the oilseed world when you're looking at soybeans. So Again, seeing soybean prices go up, that's going to take some major trade change, because that's where we've seen a big decrease in soybean prices. But year over year, if you go back 1 year from now, and again, that some trade concerns were already in the market at that point. But going back that far, it was a few days ago. I had this chart made. I guess it was on Friday. Soybeans are only 3.3% lower than they were a year ago. Corn somewhere around 6%. Chicago wheat's 15% lower than it was a year ago, and KC wheat's over 30% lower than it was a year ago. That's kind of where our commodities have come in 1 year, dramatically lower in terms of wheat. But yeah, until we get oilseed prices going higher, it's going to be tough to get seed cotton price up. Now, lint, that price is so terrible because you guys are really good at your jobs. And the market begged for cotton. We planted a lot of cotton, and we've satisfied that need. And cotton's kind of gotten back to where it probably should have been, as opposed to the really good prices. So moving forward, we'll probably see less demand for cotton acres in this state just because of the price. And that'll be something to think about as well. Where are those acres going to go? Are they going to go into wheat for grazing, things of that nature in terms of your risk management plan? Because cotton has been a huge part of your revenue source in this part of the world for the last several years, and I don't think that's going to be there in the coming Farm Bill.
All right, well, we're going to go ahead and take a break, but I did want to point out, Trent talked about crop insurance several times. He actually brought some of these with him. We're going to have a statewide crop insurance conference November the 1st up in Enid. And so he's got some of this information here for the crop insurance conference if you're interested in getting some of that. So we're going to take a little break. Everybody grab a bottle of water, a cup of coffee, grab yourself a donut, and then whenever we come back, we'll talk about the EQIP and CSP programs and some of the different programs that NRCS is involved in. Our NRCS programs, and so that's what we're going to learn about next. It's all yours.
So I am Danielle Metz, the District Conservationist for Caddo and Grady County, and the rest of the staff is here, so if you haven't met them, stop in our office. It's located out here with FSA in the front. So we'll go through just a few of the updates that we have, and the 4 major programs that we have are EQIP, CSP, ACEP, and RCPP, out of which Dana might have to give us an ACEP spiel because I've never had that program. So the first one is Environmental Quality Incentives Program. Basically, this is a program to help you improve your property by treating resource concerns that you have on your location. We can come out and meet with you, find out what your concerns are, find out what your land needs, and see if it would fit into this program. It's a cost share assistance program. It's not 100% cost share, it's a grant, as some people sometimes think. But it does help with the cost of putting those practices on the ground, whether they be for crops or for cattle or intermix of both. So this is what we would look at if you've got problems everywhere from possibly a cedar tree problem, water control or water quality program. That's what we're going to look at for those. Now, it's new to us this year how exactly that program will work, and it's rolling out new in the next couple of weeks, so we haven't got a lot of training on that. But typically you would come in and sign up an EQIP application for those problems that you have that are existing. You'd sign that up, we'd take a look at it in the late fall, early spring. We usually get funding once a year for that program. I have no idea when that comes. It's different every time of year, basically just whenever I guess Congress decides to dump money on us. So you can come in and sign up. But I do encourage you, if you have some problems, that this is what gets you in the door. It might not be the program that we end up using for your place, but for right now, that's what would get us out there. So it talks about all of a lot of things we can and can't do are on this list, but ponds, pipelines, wells, tanks for livestock watering facility use, cross fencing for grazing distribution. We haven't got to use that for a long time. I'm really sad that's on there because we don't get to do that very much. But brush management of eastern red cedars, grass planting for erosion control. That's basically taking it out of cropland to put it to an improved or native grass situation. We can help with either one of those. And there's a lot more on the list. It just kind of depends on what you have as to what we would gear you towards. The Conservation Stewardship Program, it's a program that came out nationwide in 2010. So it's been around for a little while. For the first 5 years, 6 years, it was a pretty decent program. After that, it tended to get a little bit off course, and it's a little bit harder to administer. It's harder to adhere to the strict guidelines of it as well. We have a problem in the area basically with that, working on the improved grass situations in our native rangelands. So if this is something you're interested in, this is a one-on-one conversation because every place is completely different. The program is a 5-year deal that you enter into. It does come with like a rental rate type agreement that you would get every year to do elevated enhancements on your place as far as extra activities that you're wanting to do to increase your conservation efforts. Basically it says all that right there. It's 5-year, but that's a one-on-one, and we can go through your place with you one-on-one in the office with you, and then take a look at your property if we would think that that would fit it. Our easement programs, I think around here the biggest one we have is our wetlands. It used to be the old Wetland Reserve Program. Now it's the Wetland Reserve Enhancement Program. Same thing. They are easement programs, so they're longer than a 5 or 10-year deal. A lot of the wetlands around here are 30-year or perpetual permanent easements. We do buy the cropping rights off that, so you really don't, you're not really able to crop it again ever. However, you can do extra enhancements to increase your wildlife production, to get birds, ducks on that wetland. Some of them come, I think the 15 and 20 years still come with rental rates. 20-year plus basically is a flat buy rate. So have y'all had one of those in the last 2 years? They're all, I was going to say, all I've ever had are perpetuals, and they're a little bit easier to explain. The rental rate for what we would do kind of depends on that. Again, that'd be a one-on-one. We take a look at your soil type. We take a look at the actual location to see if it does have historical wetlands on it. But if you have a low-lying area, basically I tell people if it's low-lying and it floods out, 3 out of 5 years, you're probably looking at an area that would be good for a wetland development. Agricultural land easements. I haven't done much of those either. Did you do any of those, Dana, last year? No. Those are about the same. They basically purchase the easement rights and the cropping rights from you. Same things, 10, 15, 20, and 30, and perpetual easements. There's that. The RE again. So the ALE is, that one is specific for the eligible partners. So that would be, you know, any of the Indian tribes that we have located in the 2 counties. And I don't want to call it wrong, school land. School land is not eligible for any of that as well. So that's about all I have. Like I said, it's kind of hard to say that we have a whole lot of updates because our stuff hasn't really rolled out just yet. Our agency is still in the process of putting together all of the policy, quote unquote, on everything from hemp production to erosion control to how we're going to administer EQIP even this year. So we're kind of all sitting back here biting our fingers because we don't really know how it's going to work. But if you haven't come in the door, just come in and talk to us. If you have problems on places, erosion control problems, or looking at maybe a CSP program to help do some enhancements, just holler at us. I think that's about all I've got. Any questions?
So I have one. I'm gonna put a slightly different hat on. My parents have land up in Caddo County, and they have some land coming out of CRP that they're interested in doing some improvements on to convert it to grazing land for cattle. What are some of the rules related to doing like an EQIP or a CSP evaluation on land that's rolling out?
There are no rules. We can take a look at it, not a problem. It just kind of, whatever the goal in mind, so if they're looking towards cattle or goats or sheep or whatever their goal is, we can look at the stand that they have now and try and help them to get to that point of production back for it. That there's no rules. It can roll basically out of CRP. Once it's out of CRP, it would be eligible for anything because it's based on that land use and that land type.
Okay.
Having been in CRP doesn't stop you from doing anything, really. So, yeah, Slow Kiva, right? That's what I thought. Yeah. So yeah, tell them to come. Is it rolling out this year, end of the month, or?
In the 20.
Okay. Yeah. Just you know, if they're looking for water sources or anything like that, we could take a look at it.
Yeah, I think they're looking to do some cedar control and some things like that. So.
Well, I hope there's no cedar trees in their CRP land.
No.
I did not hear that. Mark, it doesn't do me any good anyway, does it? I mean, I know. Yeah, it's not typically known for CRP land down here. Mark and I have both worked up in an area, like the northeast or northwest part of the state is a little bit bigger for CRP, so they're a little stricter up there on CRP than they are down here. But yeah, there's no restrictions on it. We can take a look at it. Yeah, exactly. It's a pristine native grass population that's this high. Yeah, sorry. That's a lot of what we got. So.
Just make sure you didn't make over $900,000 paper sign, or they kick you out for a year.
Okay.
That's true. You do have to sign the level. I'm going to push that back on FSA because they are the eligibility agency. If you make more than $100,000 a year, or even if you don't sign that form, it makes you not eligible for everything in the entire door. Got to do them every year, and every year, I mean, we're all about FPAC, you know, farm production and conservation, one big happy agency, but we're really not. It's horrible when it comes to what our agencies transfer back and forth, and what time frame they do things and what time frame we do things. So sometimes there's a lot of paperwork that comes with it, but we can help you walk through that. I promise. We're not going to leave you high and dry if you have to do it. So, anything else? All right.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Alright, well, hopefully this has been some useful information as we've gone along here. See if that kicks me, but no, of course, it didn't send me in the beginning.
So how we're gonna round things out this morning is we're just gonna talk a little bit about how Arkham PLC actually played out in this last farm bill, because I think that helps to some of what Trent was saying about kind of where were we at and what did we actually see happen in Arkham PLC. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the 2018 decision tool, which Scott had mentioned a couple of times. Now, I'll tell you right now, this tool isn't out. It won't be out until November. The reason being we were waiting for those irrigated and non-irrigated yields for ARC to come out before we could complete the tool. So that's actually going to come out in November. We've got some time, you know, for the sign-ups. But if there is some interest in learning kind of more details about that tool or even walking through a scenario on that tool, you could talk to Cheyenne and we could get something set up for you guys here in the county. But I will talk a little bit about at least what's in it so you know if you are interested or not. So just looking back on the 2014 Farm Bill, this is the percentage of farms electing in the different programs and the percent of bases electing in the different programs. And this is across the state of Oklahoma. So we can really see what Trent was talking about on how people were kind of going for that 2014, 2015 bird in the hand kind of moment. Where they were really kind of leaning a little more heavily towards ARC, although we certainly had some folks who went PLC as well. Very little ARC IC across the state of Oklahoma. And mostly that's going to be on land where they had some pretty poor yields historically, because sometimes ARC IC will work out well on farms that have pretty low yields. Well, how did that then translate into counties that had a payment trigger? So this is across all 77 counties. How many of those counties actually had a payment trigger under ARC or PLC in each one of these years? And here again, we can see that effect that we kind of knew what was going to happen. In those first couple of years of the Farm Bill, we felt like we were going to get some payments trigger, and especially you can look at PLC, had very few counties that actually had payments trigger for most of our commodities under PLC in that first year. Although certainly you can see the effect of later years as prices started to go down on how that PLC program reacted to that as compared to the shallow loss ARC program. Well, then we can think about, well, how does that then translate into county payments and how those are distributed around the state? Now, I just want a note of caution. These are total payouts as reported by USDA under the different programs. So you can't really compare one to the other and say, well, this one had a higher payment rate than the other one. We'll get to some other slides that have that, because this is going to be multiplied by those numbers of base acres that are signed up under the different programs. But certainly you can see that, you know, here in Grady County, in Caddo County, you know, where I'm from, you could see some of the payouts under ARC County started to get a little bit bigger. In some of those counties as you started to go a little bit more northwest. And if we look at the PLC totals though, this is really that balloon effect of those bigger payouts in the later years of this farm bill. And I went ahead and pulled up corn as well, just as a counter example to the wheat. And again, you can see almost 77,000 in Grady County, as compared to about $35,000 in total PLC payments on corn in Grady County. So this is, again, just comparing some of those totals to think about how these actually paid out. And I made these big so you could actually see the differences in the bars, but I did highlight they're on pretty different scales here, wheat payments versus corn payments across the two counties. But this one, what you can really see, what I want to point out is this big spike that we got in wheat in 2016. That's a lot of where that total PLC payout came from, where you got kind of more of a steady payment across time out of ARC on the wheat programs. And then again, on the corn payment, you kind of had, the reason ARC paid out well on that is, again, you kind of had these big spikes. So it comes down to what Trent was saying, of what are you really trying to protect against for these programs? Where are you fitting this into your risk management strategy for your farm? So then what about 2018? I just pulled down, this is from the Kansas State website on their ARC Manager website, Ag Manager website. I've got ARC on the brain. They actually have a lot of nice tools and ways to visualize some of the data from around the state. You can download this from their Ag Manager website. I'm happy to provide you with the link if you want to pull it down and play with it sometime. This is the one that Trent talked about a little bit, so I'm not going to talk about it a lot more, other than just to say, again, you can kind of see that steady, oops, it's a touch screen. All right, you can really see that sort of steady payment out of the ARC program versus sort of the bigger spike whenever prices went down for the PLC program. This is corn, and part of the reason I wanted to show this is of all the counties that I have looked at on this tool, this is one of the few counties where I actually saw an outperformance of ARC versus PLC, and that was on corn. And again, it's because you kind of get these little spikes in here on this. So I think the thing that I would take away from what we've looked at in the past is there is no one-size-fits-all strategy out of this. It really comes down to your individual operation, what kind of base you've got on your farm that you're going to be signing up, and then also, you know, how some of those pieces fit together. Going back to the first presentation, thinking about the PLC yield update, I really think, you know, that I'm encouraging people, think about that PLC yield update, check it out, make sure it's not something that you want to get, because you get one opportunity at this point, you get one opportunity to do that yield update. So even if you don't think, you know, bird in the hand, you might not think you want to do PLC in those first 2 years, but if that yield update is beneficial to you, if you can get a higher yield, and you think you might use PLC in 21, 22, or 23, then it's worth doing, especially since you have all the way up to, I think it's September 30th of next year to get the yield update done, right? Is it one full year? Maybe?
It's in the sun.
It ends in, okay,
I'm not sure about that.
okay. Well, I don't know. Where'd Scott go?
Plenty of time still.
Plenty of time, exactly. Plenty of time to do that. So when we look forward to 2019 and 2020, and I kind of stole some of this from Trent as well, when should I consider Ark County? As Trent said, when you really want that protection from low yields and low prices, some combination of the two. There's something on your operation, there's something in your county that you know you want that shallow loss revenue protection, that you want that yield protection as well. If you have a diversified cropping operation, or if you ultimately believe prices will rise in 2019 and 2020, maybe you really feel like something's going to work out in this world supply situation, and you think the prices will rise in 19 and 20, maybe you really want to consider for that particular commodity the ARC program. PLC, you might want to consider PLC when you're really mainly worried about protection against those low prices in the next couple of years, and you really don't think those prices are going to improve much to get above that 550 reference price, for example, for wheat in the next couple of years. Also, if you're seriously considering that supplemental coverage option to your crop insurance to really get you up to that higher level of coverage on your crop insurance, that's only available with PLC. So if you think you might want to go PLC, that's another consideration. Do you want that option? You're not required to buy it, but it's certainly an option if you buy PLC. So, you know, when I was first putting this slide together and I thought to myself, well, you know, what if it was me? I would say, that's all nice information, Hagerman, but I'm still not sure what I want to do. There's a lot of differences out there. This is a lot of generalizations about what's happening out in the market. I want more. So we have worked with Kansas State University to put together a decision tool. There's a lot of, well, there isn't a lot of it. There's 3 decision tools really out there for the ARC versus PLC decision. University of Illinois, Texas A&M, and then the OSU KSU decision tool. Any one of those, they're all going to give you about the same information. It's just that they work a little bit differently. That's the main difference between them. So I would really encourage you, whichever one you think you're most comfortable with, to pursue that. But I did want to present a little bit about this OSU KSU decision tool that we're working on now. The first thing I would say is this tool allows you to compare side by side ARC County, ARC Individual, PLC, the PLC plus SCO option for your crop insurance, and it also allows you to look at the PLC yield update inside of the same tool. You're just going to enter the basic information about your farm. You're going to start with your base acres and your crop history. That's what gets you to those revenues and some of those factors for ARC and PLC. You're going to enter that information for your farm, and then it will give you an option to enter what you think will happen to price and yield in 19 and 20. And you can play around with this a little bit, and we'll talk about that on the last page as well. But this is just your first guess at where you think you're going to be on this. Then when you come out to the results page, it's going to allow you to compare. So this first one is 2019. You'll get to compare everything for 2019. And here you'll get to compare things for 2020. One of the things I point out about 2020 is it allows you to look at your PLC with your current yield that you have on file, and it allows you to look at PLC with your updated yield on file. That's already going to take into account all the adjustment rates, all those percentages, all of those things, the different details from the examples that Scott showed. And it does provide a comparison to ARC Individual, which of course those aren't crop specific because that program is out across your entire operation, all the crops that you have base on your whole operation. So it's only going to give you a farm number on ARC Individual. And then it's going to sum those up and it's going to give you just a projected payments for those different programs. And you might say, well, I'm not really sure what those prices or yields are going to be. You know, Trent talked about that a little bit. I don't know. My crystal ball isn't really good. It's a little foggy. It's a little finger smudged. It's got a few cracks in it, you know. That's where these two yellow boxes up here at the top come in, where you can vary your yields and you can vary your prices. And you can see, all right, how much do prices have to change before that recommended payout really starts to change? Or how much do yields have to change before that payout really starts to change for my operation? And so right there on the results page, you can just keep entering different numbers in that to see how much it changes the final results that come out of it. And if you're a visual person like me, it'll give you a little bar graph that'll show you, okay, for this particular crop that I wanted to look at, visually, can I see really a difference between 19, 20, and the two combined across these different programs and helping me make a selection for this next year? So we just got the data on the irrigated and non-irrigated yields for the Ark County yesterday. It was released on Thursday. We anticipate release of this tool in November, and so Cheyenne will be able to help you get a copy of this if you would like to use it. It's just going to be available online. You can download it right on your desktop and be able to play with those numbers right there at home whenever you've got some time and you want to mess around with it. I think, we'll be offering some opportunities to actually sit down and do some demos with the tool around the state. But with that was all I was really going to say about what was happening historically and about the decision tool at this point. I hope you guys have gotten some good information today that have maybe given you one additional piece that you didn't have before. Maybe helped you think a little bit more about what this decision might look like. You've got some time to make the decision. We've got, till March 15th for a lot of this stuff. So if there are any questions about the entire program, you've kind of got your whole expert panel here along the back of the room for some of the different programs, or if you want to quiz Trent on markets a little bit more, or if you want to quiz me, you're certainly welcome to. The only other thing I would say is that I do have just a really quick sort of thing. We were funded by the Southern Risk Management Education Center this year to do Farm Bill programming, and so they have a couple of questions they want me to ask, so I'll have to pull those out real quick. But are there any questions? Cheyenne, do you have any other program updates coming up? Anything else come up you'd like them to know about? Nope. No. All right. Well, then, with that, thank you guys for coming. I appreciate it. I'm very happy to take any kind of feedback you guys have about different sorts of programs you might like to see. If there's any kind of policy information that you'd like to have, I'm happy to give you my business card. Welcome to give me a call, ask me anything you might have questions about. But other than that, bottle of water and donut with you as you go. Let me know if there's anything else we can do. Grab more.